Most people grow up believing a simple idea. If you are smart, life will reward you. If you understand things quickly, if you think deeply, if you see patterns others miss, money will eventually come. Stability will follow. Freedom will arrive. This idea feels fair. It feels logical. And for a long time, it feels true. You were praised for your mind. Teachers noticed you. People told you that you had potential. You learned fast. You could explain things. You could see why something would not work even before it failed. And slowly, without realizing it, a quiet belief formed inside you that intelligence itself was a form of progress. But then years passed, and something felt wrong. You were still thinking, still learning, still understanding more than most people around you. Yet financially, life felt tight. Opportunities felt distant. Progress felt slow. Meanwhile, people you once thought were average were moving ahead, buying homes, building businesses, creating security, and you wondered how. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Intelligence does not guarantee wealth. In many cases, it delays it. This is the mistake smart people make. They mistake mental clarity for forward motion. They confuse insight with execution. They believe that because they can see the path, they are already walking it. But life does not reward vision alone. Life rewards movement. There is a myth that needs to be broken early. Success is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about being the most consistent one. Not the one with the best ideas, but the one who returns to the same work every day, even when it feels dull, even when it feels slow, even when it feels beneath their intelligence. Smart people often wait for work that matches their intellect. They want challenges that feel worthy. They want complexity. They want stimulation. But most wealth is built through simple actions done repeatedly, not complex ideas admired occasionally. That is why intelligence can become a liability. It makes simple things feel boring, and boring things are often the most profitable. Think of success like a bridge being built across a river. From a distance, you only see the final structure, solid, reliable, impressive. But the real work happened before anyone noticed. Foundations drilled deep into the ground, supports placed underwater, measurements checked again and again. No applause, no recognition, just quiet, repetitive labor. That invisible work is where success actually forms. Smart people love the design phase, the planning, the imagining, the modeling. But they often resist the construction phase because construction is repetitive. Construction is imperfect. Construction is slow. And it does not reward intelligence, it rewards patience. Invisible work feels unsatisfying because there is no immediate feedback. No one praises you for showing up again. No one celebrates your consistency. And so the mind looks for stimulation elsewhere. New ideas, new plans, new directions. But wealth grows where attention stays. There's a law that governs opportunity. Opportunity does not respond to intention. It responds to preparation. And preparation is rarely glamorous. It is skill built quietly, capacity developed before demand appears, systems tested long before pressure arrives. Preparation meeting opportunity looks like luck from the outside, but it never is. Smart people often want opportunity to validate their preparation. They wait to be chosen, to be invited, to be recognized. But the world rarely calls the prepared. The prepared move first and force the world to respond. Preparation is not reading about swimming. It is getting into the water. It is swallowing discomfort. It is moving awkwardly at first. It is building muscle memory before elegance. And this is where many intelligent people hesitate. They do not want to look incompetent. They do not want to struggle publicly. They want to be good before they begin. But competence is a reward for starting, not a prerequisite. Pressure reveals patterns. When life becomes uncomfortable, when money is tight, when expectations collide with reality, your habits surface. Not your plans, not your beliefs, your habits. Consider two people facing the same financial strain. Both lose income unexpectedly. One reacts with denial. They freeze. They wait. They replay conversations. They blame circumstances. The other reacts with urgency. They cut unnecessary expenses. They take temporary work without pride. They learn something practical at night. They adapt. Same pressure, different pattern. Or think of two people trying to build something new. Both face rejection. Clients say, no, progress is slow. One person internalizes the rejection. They question their worth. They pause to rethink everything. The other person treats rejection as information. They refine their approach. They improve the offer. They keep showing up. Pressure does not make you weak or strong. It exposes whether you built structure before stress arrived. Smart people often rely on intelligence instead of structure, and intelligence collapses under sustained pressure. Structure holds. Focus is the currency of results, and distraction is the tax you pay without noticing. You live in a world designed to fracture attention. Endless information, endless opinions, endless comparisons, and intelligent people are especially at risk because they enjoy thinking, they enjoy learning, they enjoy consuming ideas. But consumption feels productive without being productive. Focus is not about doing more things. It is about doing fewer things better. It is about protecting your time from unnecessary inputs so your energy can be directed toward output. Ask yourself a simple question. At the end of the day, what did you produce? Not what did you learn, not what did you plan, what did you produce? The people who build wealth are not the most informed. They are the most focused. They decide what matters and ignore everything else. Growth follows a simple sequence. Learn, apply, evaluate, correct, persist. Most people stop at learn. Smart people often stop at evaluate. They analyze endlessly. They critique themselves into paralysis. They want optimization before repetition. But progress comes from correction, not contemplation. Learning without application creates confidence without capability. Evaluation without correction creates awareness without advancement. Persistence is where intelligence must submit to humility. You repeat actions that no longer feel intellectually stimulating. You trust the process even when your mind wants novelty. Discipline outperforms motivation every time. Motivation is emotional. It depends on mood. Discipline is mechanical. It depends on systems. If you rely on motivation, you will act inconsistently. If you rely on systems, you will act even when you do not feel like it. Systems remove decision fatigue. They remove emotion from execution. They turn progress into routine. Smart people often resist systems because they feel restrictive, but systems do not limit freedom. They create it. They free your mind from constant negotiation. Strategic patience is another principle that intelligent people misunderstand. They expect fast feedback because they understand quickly. But understanding does not speed up reality. Everything meaningful grows in seasons. You plant, you wait, you nurture, you wait again. Then you harvest. If you pull the plant too early to check progress, you kill it. Time is not a delay, it is a requirement. Smart people often abandon efforts prematurely because they underestimate timelines. They confuse slow growth with wrong direction. Feedback and refinement are the final pieces. You must measure what matters. You must adjust without ego. Data should guide you, not define you. Correction is not failure, it is alignment. Momentum builds quietly like a heavy wheel. At first, effort feels wasted. Then one day it moves easier. Then one day it moves on its own. Breakthrough is not an event. It is a lifestyle. It is the result of choosing structure over comfort every day. If you are intelligent and still struggling financially, the issue is not your mind. It is how you use it. You do not need more ideas. You need fewer, executed longer. You do not need clarity. You need commitment. One day you will realize the shift was subtle. You stopped waiting. You started building. You stopped thinking about progress. You focused on process. And slowly, steadily, life responds. Not because you are smart, but because you finally aligned intelligence with action. You finally understand something that was always true but rarely explained. Intelligence is a tool, not a guarantee. A tool must be used correctly, or it becomes useless. Worse, it becomes misleading. It gives the illusion of movement without the reality of progress. When you begin to align your thinking with action, something subtle happens. Your mind becomes quieter, not because you think less, but because you waste less thought on things that do not matter. You stop rehearsing imaginary futures. You stop replaying past mistakes. Your attention shifts to the next practical step. This is where real growth begins. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You are used to being ahead mentally. Now you are choosing to be ahead behaviorally. That means doing things that do not flatter your intelligence. Simple tasks, repetitive tasks, tasks that could be done by almost anyone, and that can feel insulting to the ego. But wealth does not care about ego. Results do not respond to pride. There is a quiet discipline in showing up to work that does not stimulate you intellectually, but strengthens you financially. Smart people often believe that if something does not challenge the mind, it cannot build value. This is false. Many of the most valuable activities are mentally simple but emotionally demanding. They require patience. They require consistency. They require restraint. Restraint is one of the hardest skills for intelligent people. You see possibilities everywhere. You see improvements everywhere. You see new paths constantly. And because you can imagine better versions, you delay committing to the current one. But progress requires limitation. You must choose one direction and ignore 10 others, not because they are wrong, but because they are distractions. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you delayed action because you believed a better approach might exist? How many times did you wait for the perfect plan instead of executing a good one? Perfection is not intelligence. It is fear dressed as logic. Execution is imperfect by nature. It involves mistakes. It involves feedback that bruises the ego. It involves discovering gaps in your understanding. And that is why many smart people unconsciously avoid it, because it threatens the identity they built around being capable. But identity must evolve, or it becomes a cage. When you begin to act consistently, something else changes. Your relationship with failure shifts. Failure no longer feels like a judgment. It becomes a signal, a direction, a teacher. This is where feedback becomes powerful. Feedback is not emotional. It is informational. It tells you what worked and what did not. And when you remove emotion from it, improvement accelerates. Smart people often overthink feedback. They attach meaning to it. They internalize it. But feedback is not about you. It is about the process. Measure what matters: output, revenue, skill improvement, time invested versus return. Numbers remove confusion. They replace stories with clarity. Refinement is simply responding to what reality shows you, not what you hope for, not what you imagined, what actually happened. This requires humility. And humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking less about yourself. When humility meets consistency, momentum forms. Momentum is strange. It feels absent for a long time. You push and nothing happens. You adjust and nothing happens. You persist and nothing happens. Then one day something shifts. Responses come faster. Results stack quicker. Confidence becomes grounded instead of imagined. This is the flywheel effect in real life. The hardest part is the beginning, the part where effort feels disconnected from reward, the part where doubt whispers that you are wasting time. Smart people are especially sensitive to this phase. They want evidence early, they want confirmation, they want proof that they are on the right path. But proof comes last, not first. The people who win are not the ones who felt confident early. They are the ones who stayed consistent without confidence. And when momentum arrives, it changes how you see effort. Work no longer feels heavy. It feels natural. Habits carry you forward. Discipline becomes identity. This is when breakthrough becomes a lifestyle. A breakthrough is not a single moment where everything changes. It is the point where your daily behavior finally matches your long-term goals, where your systems support your ambitions, where your environment reinforces your discipline. At this stage, success stops feeling fragile. It stops depending on mood or inspiration. It becomes durable. You stop asking if it will work. You focus on refining how well it works. This emotional elevation is quiet. It is not excitement. It is calm confidence, the confidence that comes from knowing you can repeat results because you built the process. You trust yourself differently now, not because you believe in your potential, but because you have evidence of your consistency. This is the moment many smart people never reach, not because they cannot, but because they quit too early. They abandon structure for stimulation. They trade patience for novelty. They mistake movement of the mind for movement of life. But you do not have to make that mistake. You can choose differently. You can choose to stop overvaluing ideas and start respecting execution. You can choose to build systems instead of waiting for motivation. You can choose to commit to a path long enough for time to reward you. One day you will look back and realize that the turning point was not dramatic. It was not a sudden opportunity. It was a quiet decision to stop negotiating with yourself. One day you decided that action mattered more than comfort, that repetition mattered more than excitement, that patience mattered more than brilliance. And from that day forward, everything slowly aligned, not overnight, not magically, but reliably. This is the difference between people who remain smart and people who become successful. One understands, the other builds, and building changes you in ways thinking never can. When you build, you confront reality, not the version of reality you imagine, but the one that exists. You see where your assumptions were wrong. You see where effort matters more than elegance. You see how small actions compound while big ideas fade. This is where maturity begins. Smart people often live in abstraction. They live in models, in theories, in imagined outcomes. But money is concrete. It responds to behavior, not beliefs. It flows toward value delivered consistently, not potential discussed endlessly. When you start building, you stop asking, is this the best possible approach? And start asking, does this work? That shift is everything. Because best is a moving target. Works is measurable. You also begin to understand a deeper law. The world does not pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you can deliver repeatedly at a standard others can rely on. Reliability creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity creates income. Smart people often undervalue reliability because it feels ordinary. But ordinary actions done without interruption create extraordinary outcomes. Think about it. If someone can count on you to show up, to execute, to improve slightly every time, your value increases automatically. You become rare, not because of brilliance, but because of dependability. Dependability is boring to talk about, but it is powerful to live. As you continue on this path, another shift happens. Your relationship with time changes. You stop rushing. You stop needing immediate validation. You understand that today's effort is not meant to impress today. It is meant to support tomorrow. This is strategic patience in action. Strategic patience is not passive hope. It is active consistency without emotional urgency. It is the ability to stay calm while progress unfolds slowly. It is the discipline to keep going even when the reward is delayed. Smart people often feel restless because their minds move faster than results. They want outcomes to match understanding. But reality moves at its own pace. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner peace enters your work. Time rewards those who respect its rhythm. When you respect time, you stop forcing outcomes. You focus on inputs. You ask better questions. Did I show up today? Did I execute the system? Did I remove friction? Did I learn from feedback? These questions create progress, not excitement, progress. Feedback becomes your compass. Instead of asking how you feel, you ask what the numbers say. Instead of guessing, you measure. Instead of defending your approach, you adjust it. This is where refinement becomes natural. Refinement is not starting over. It is improving what already exists. It is resisting the urge to abandon and choosing instead to optimize. Smart people love starting. They struggle with staying, but staying is where leverage lives. When you stay long enough, patterns emerge. You see what matters and what does not. You learn where effort multiplies and where it leaks. You stop wasting energy on things that feel impressive but produce little return. This is when compounding begins. Compounding is quiet. It does not announce itself. It happens when small advantages stack over time. Slightly better decisions, slightly better habits, slightly better execution. At first, it feels insignificant, but over months and years, it becomes undeniable. This is the flywheel effect at work. Each push builds on the last. Eventually, momentum carries you. What once required force now requires maintenance. But remember this, the flywheel only works if you keep pushing when it feels pointless. Most people stop just before momentum arrives. Smart people stop even earlier because they believe if something were working, it would already look impressive. But results lag behavior, always. Understanding this protects you from quitting too soon. As momentum builds, your confidence changes shape. It becomes quieter, less performative, more grounded. You no longer need to convince yourself that you are capable. You have evidence. This evidence is powerful. It rewires how you see challenges. Problems no longer feel threatening. They feel solvable because you have solved smaller ones before. This is emotional elevation, not excitement. Excitement is loud and short-lived. Emotional elevation is calm and durable. It is the feeling of being aligned with your actions, of knowing that regardless of external conditions, you have internal structure. This is what it means to make breakthrough a lifestyle. A lifestyle is not something you do once. It is something you live daily. It shapes your choices automatically. It removes friction between who you are and what you do. When breakthrough becomes a lifestyle, success stops feeling fragile. You are no longer afraid of losing momentum because you know how to rebuild it. You trust your systems. You trust your habits. You trust your patience. At this stage, intelligence finally serves you properly. It sharpens decisions instead of delaying them. It simplifies processes instead of complicating them. It supports action instead of replacing it. This is the intelligence that builds wealth. Not cleverness, not analysis, but applied understanding reinforced by discipline. If you are listening to this and you feel a quiet recognition, that is good. That recognition is not guilt. It is awareness. And awareness is the beginning of change. You do not need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to choose one area, one system, one commitment, and stay with it longer than your mind wants to. One day you will notice that things feel different, not easier, but steadier, less chaotic, more intentional. You will feel less pulled by distractions and more anchored by purpose. One day you will realize that the question is no longer, will this work? The question becomes, how can I improve this? That is the moment you cross the line, not from failure to success, but from potential to reality. And once you cross that line, you do not go back, because now you understand the real mistakes smart people make. They think their mind alone will carry them forward. It will not. Only disciplined action, repeated patiently, will do that. And now you are ready to choose that path. Good. Then stay with this thought a little longer, because choosing that path is not a single decision. It is a series of small decisions made again and again, decisions that do not feel heroic, decisions that rarely feel urgent, decisions that often feel boring. And that is exactly why most people avoid them. Smart people especially struggle here. They want their choices to feel meaningful. They want their actions to feel significant. They want progress to feel intelligent. But the truth is simple. Most progress feels plain. It feels repetitive. It feels uneventful. And yet, it works. When you finally commit to disciplined action, you notice something unexpected. The noise in your life begins to fade. You are no longer pulled in 10 directions at once. You stop chasing every idea that passes through your mind. You begin to value depth over novelty. Depth is uncomfortable at first. It forces you to confront your limits. It exposes gaps in your skills. It removes the safety of starting over. But depth is where leverage lives. When you stay with one thing long enough, you gain an advantage that cannot be copied quickly. Familiarity, pattern recognition, subtle understanding. You see details others miss, not because you are smarter, but because you stayed longer. This is how ordinary actions become extraordinary outcomes. There is another quiet mistake intelligent people make. They overestimate how much progress should feel like progress. They expect internal confirmation, a sense of certainty, a feeling of alignment. But progress often feels like confusion slowly becoming manageable. You will have days where you wonder if you are wasting time, days where the results seem flat, days where you feel behind. These days are not signs of failure. They are signs that you are still in the process. Process is uncomfortable because it lacks resolution. The human mind craves closure. It wants to know how things end. It wants reassurance. But building anything meaningful requires living without closure for long periods of time. Smart people often avoid this discomfort by jumping to new projects, new goals, new directions. Each new beginning brings a rush of clarity, but clarity without continuity produces nothing. Continuity is where results come from. As you continue, you also begin to understand the difference between effort and effectiveness. Not all effort is equal. Some actions move you forward, others keep you busy. Intelligence helps you distinguish between the two, but only if you are willing to observe honestly. This is where measurement becomes essential. You measure what matters, not to judge yourself, but to guide yourself. You track outcomes, not emotions. You look at trends, not single days. You make adjustments based on reality, not hope. Over time, this builds confidence that is not dependent on praise or comparison. You know what you are doing because you can see it working, even slowly. Slow progress is still progress, and slow progress compounds. Compounding is difficult to appreciate while it is happening. The early stages feel insignificant. The gains seem too small to matter. But compounding does not need your belief. It only needs your consistency. One day, the numbers surprise you. The skill gap widens. The stability becomes noticeable. And people begin to ask what changed. They will assume it was a moment, an opportunity, a breakthrough. You will know it was a lifestyle of showing up when it was boring, of sticking with systems when motivation faded, of trusting time when impatience whispered. This lifestyle does something else. It changes how you see other people's success. You stop envying outcomes. You start respecting processes. You understand that what you see is only the surface. That understanding brings peace. You no longer rush. You no longer compare timelines. You know where you are. You know what you are building. And that clarity removes anxiety. Anxiety often comes from misalignment, from knowing what you should do but not doing it, from seeing the path but not walking it. When action and intention align, anxiety decreases. This is emotional stability earned through discipline. And emotional stability is one of the most underrated forms of wealth. When you are stable internally, external volatility affects you less. You make better decisions. You react less. You respond more. You are no longer hijacked by urgency. Urgency is the enemy of good judgment. Smart people often feel urgent because they are aware of time passing. They see opportunities slipping away. They fear being left behind. But urgency leads to rushed decisions, abandoned systems, and scattered effort. Strategic patience solves this. Strategic patience allows you to move steadily without panic. It allows you to trust that what you are building will mature if you let it. It allows you to say no to distractions that offer quick rewards but derail long-term growth. Patience is not waiting. It is working without emotional demand. As you live this way longer, your identity shifts. You no longer see yourself as someone who is trying to succeed. You see yourself as someone who executes consistently. That identity matters. Identity shapes behavior. When you see yourself as disciplined, you act disciplined. When you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, finishing becomes natural. This is how habits become effortless. Effortless does not mean easy. It means automatic. It means you no longer debate with yourself. The decision is already made. And this is where intelligence finally becomes an advantage. Now, your intelligence optimizes instead of delays. It refines instead of questions. It strengthens systems instead of dismantling them. You use your mind to remove friction, to simplify steps, to improve efficiency, not to avoid action. This is the intelligent use of intelligence. If you are still listening, understand this clearly. You are not behind because you are incapable. You are behind because you relied too much on thinking and too little on doing. That can change, not tomorrow, not next month, today, by choosing one thing to do consistently, regardless of how you feel about it, by accepting that boredom is part of mastery, by allowing time to work on your behalf instead of fighting it. One day you will notice that life feels quieter, less chaotic, more predictable in a good way. You will have fewer dramatic highs and lows, more steady progress. And that steadiness will create confidence, not the loud confidence of people who talk about success, the quiet confidence of people who are building it. You will no longer ask if you are smart enough. You will know that intelligence was never the issue. Consistency was. And now you have it.